the Bhavalpur training camp. Next slide, please. Okay, just wait. So the effect, if you see, the impact point, if I can point out, this is the impact point. The ammunition has gone through the roof and it has created a blast inside, the photographs of which you would have, all of you would have seen. And the red building, after that there was this double-story building. It has been completely decimated by our precision targeting. Next, please. The target system, which was in the north, a series of buildings. I will show you how it looked. Next. Completely destroyed by our precision targeting. Next. Now coming to Bhavalpur, this is the target complex that we are dealing with, a fairly large target complex. So we had to carefully choose the points that we needed to address, which were high value and which would meet our stated objectives of eliminating the terrorists. I would like to draw your attention to this red canopy, and in relation to that I would cover the targets. One target system is a series of buildings here, other one here, and other one out here. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before, and this is how the building looked after the impact of the weapon, and orientation in relation to this red canopy you can see here. Next, please. Before, next, and after. The roofs have completely collapsed. Next. This is the target system. Next. Precision targeting, and we have achieved our objectives here. Next. All right. So that was what we did on the 7th. Our objective was to address these two terrorist camps, and that we did with precision. And thereafter, we maintained a robust air defense posture, because remember, our objective was to target the terrorists and terrorist infrastructure, not any other infrastructure, not the Pakistani military, not the Pakistani any other infrastructure. So that is what we have. However, what we saw in the evening of 7th of May, we were saturated with and small drones, and these came in waves. All of them were successfully intercepted. Few of them not much damage that they did, and we have our robust counter-US. The difference here was that we had targeted the terrorists, and calibrated response. That very night we struck installation to indicate to him that we are ready.
Thank you, Air Marshal. Not only on the night of 6th and 7th of May, when Operation SINDOOR commenced, but also the congenital and impulsive nature of our adversary, and to strike at the heart of terror to my counterpart in the turned down, with an intimation we were of course prepared. Operations on the 7th and the they flew drones and aircrafts into our airspace and made largely violations on the line of control by Pakistan also commenced yet again and precipitated into fierce artillery. 9th of May, I'll yet again request the DG Air Operations to cover.
Covered what happened on the night of 7th and 8th. What we found that on the night of 8th, our cities had a mass raid of right from Srinagar going down right up to Nalia. However, we were prepared and our air defense preparedness. The difference between 7th night and 8th night was Yeha class of UAVs. However, these UAVs can go some distance, they are armed. However, on the element of civilians. This continued till midnight. Our air defense preparedness ensured that there was no damage on the ground, either to the military installations or to the civilians. He wanted to up the ante and he wanted a fight, and we were up to the task. In a measured and calibrated which included his SAM sites at Malirkant. This also included at Lahore and close to Gujranwala. These were suitably addressed. During the daytime, there was some respite. Here, I would like to bring out another aspect. What we found was that while the drone attacks were being launched from somewhere close to Lahore, enemy had allowed his civilian aircraft to also continue to fly out of Lahore. Not only quite insensitive, and we had to exercise extreme caution, even at the cost of some tactical disadvantage, to ensure in our press briefing during the day. Of 9th onwards.
On land, and electronic warfare assets to establish an integrated grid wax eloquent about the benefits of such an architecture when it comes to deployment, to include movement of our forces in 10th of May saw similar intrusions by drones and aircrafts, albeit yet again unsuccessful and denied gallantly and Indian Army Air Defense. We further strengthened our deployment an unambiguous message to the other side to desist from any repeated attacks in waves from the air. All were lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel and the 10th of May. What the other side had Air Marshal Bharti to speak about the significant and game my colleague and Director General of Naval Operations to tell us about some very telling naval maneuvers in the Arabian Sea.
2000 hours, that is 8 p.m. local time, on 8th of May, several Pakistani unmanned aerial systems, drones, combat Pathankot, Amritsar, Bhatinda, Nal, Dalhousie, Thois, simultaneous, and they came in waves. All our all these waves were neutralized by our trained crew. Legacy systems like Pechoras, acquired, and some were neutralized by the Garud sniper Pakistani side. However, to convey some message to our adversaries, and therefore a decision was taken to strike where it would hurt, and towards that in a swift we struck his air bases, command centers, military infrastructure. Places we struck include Chaklala, Rafiki, and mind you, sending a clear message that aggression will not be. Jacobabad. We also struck UAE complex at Murid, Rafiki, radar at Chunia, which I would like to reiterate here that we have the capability. However, it was only a measured response to instill good wisdom to our adversary to refrain from further escalation. Avoiding civilian and collateral damage. I would now like to show you some here is the Pasrur Air Defense. And after the strike, can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. And after the strike, this is what has happened. This radar has been taken out, completely burnt. Which was taken out on 7th and 8th. This is the radar site. A blown up photograph once again on a tower, not very clear, but what you see very clearly is the after effect after we have struck. The radar head has been completely decapitated. Next slide, please. Arifwala Air Defense Radar. In this complex, you see how it looked before, blown up image, and after really blown up. Next. Now coming to Sargodha airfield. Remember, this is one of their important airfields wherein they have a lot of assets, F-16s, other assets which they keep getting, training institutes. And we have stuck this airfield. It is not, if you zoom in here, then one impact point here on the runway and second impact point of our weapon, precision weapon on the runway. And if you see this blown up, repairing going on, same here. Next, Rahimyar Khan. This is the area we have struck. A deep strike out here and one complex here. So this is how it looked before, and same, you see a big crater, another crater here, and this complex, after strike, neutralized. Next. Chaklala Airfield, Noor Khan, once again a major air base, a lot of their logistic assets out here. This was the chosen complex that we intended to strike and convey a message. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after our strike. Next, Sakar. We chose the radar site at Sakar. This is the radar site, and after it was struck, this is the aftermath, completely burnt out. Next, please. Aircraft shelter. This is how it looked before the strike, and this is how it looked after the strike. The roof of the buildings completely caved in and burnt. Next. Bolari Airfield, aircraft hangar. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after the precision strike. Next. Jacobabad, aircraft hangar, and this is how it looked after. Next. So what I'm trying to convey here, ladies and gentlemen, is to start with, our fight was neither with the Pakistani military nor with anybody else who's there on the other side. Our fight was with the terrorists. We neutralized the terrorists that we selected to be neutralized, and thereafter we only maintained the air defense posture. However, we were relentlessly pounded by waves after waves, night after night, by his UCAVs, by his drones, and by his other unmanned aerial systems. And that left us with no choice but to retaliate, and yet our retaliation was calibrated, it was graduated, and it was proportionate. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the aftermath of the cowardly attacks on innocent tourists at Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistani-sponsored terrorists on 22nd April, the Indian Navy's Carrier Battle Group, surface forces, submarines, and aviation assets were immediately deployed at sea with full combat readiness in concert with the joint operation plan of the Indian Defence Forces. You may be aware that we tested and refined tactics and procedures at sea during multiple weapon firings in the Arabian Sea within 96 hours of the terrorist attack. The aim was to revalidate our crew, armament, equipment, and platform readiness to deliver various ordnance on selected targets precisely. Thereafter, our forces remained forward deployed in the Northern Arabian Sea in a dissuasive and deterrent posture with full readiness and capacity to strike select targets at sea and on land, including Karachi at time of our choosing. The forward deployment of the Indian Navy compelled Pakistani naval and air units to be in a defensive posture, mostly inside harbors or very close to the coast, which we monitored continuously. The Indian Navy maintained seamless maritime domain awareness throughout the duration and was entirely aware of the location and movement of Pakistani units. In effect, we had and continue to have good battle space transparency using our maritime domain awareness grid. As you are aware, our response has been measured, proportionate, non-escalatory, and responsible from day one. Accordingly, the calibrated approach considered all options, including the ability of the Indian Navy for offensive action from and at sea. As part of this escalation control mechanism, the application of force by the Navy was planned in a synchronized manner in coordination with the Army and Air Force, the highlight being teams from the three services working closely in an integrated manner. Along with the kinetic actions by the Indian Army and Indian Air Force, the overwhelming operational edge of Indian Navy at sea contributed towards Pakistan's urgent request for a ceasefire yesterday. As we speak, Indian Navy remains deployed at sea in a credible deterrent posture to respond decisively to any inimical action by Pakistan or Pakistan-based terrorists. Thank you. Samno Varna, Jai Hind. Now I'll hand over to Director General Military Operations for further proceedings.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the 10th of May, in the morning, even as we were getting into a huddle to wargame the events of the previous night, a routine exercise, I received a message on hotline from my counterpart in Pakistan seeking my willingness to communicate. Since our initial aim was to strike at terror camps and all our actions and violations by the Pakistan Air Force and its army, it was decided that I would indeed speak with my counterpart. Television that my communication with the Pak DGMO was conducted at 15:35 hours yesterday, and by either side with effect from 1700 hours 10th of May, after he proposed that we cease hostilities. May, that's tomorrow, at 1200 hours, to discuss the modalities that would enable the longevity of this understanding. Expectedly, it took only a couple of hours for the Pakistan Army to violate these arrangements by cross-border across the expanse of the Western Front through last night and in the early hours of the morning today. These violations were responded to earlier today, sent another hotline message to my counterpart highlighting these violations of the understanding firm and clear intent to respond to these fiercely and punitively. If repeated tonight, that the Chief of Army Staff has earlier today conducted a security review and has granted full authority to our of any violation by Pakistan. In the end, I pay my solemn homage to my 5 fallen colleagues and brothers from the armed forces and civilians who have tragically lost their lives in Operation SINDOOR. Our hearts go out to the bereaved families, and we express our solidarity to them at this grave juncture in their lives. Their sacrifices shall always be remembered. We have thus far, ladies and gentlemen, exercised, and my colleague Pramod highlighted this, immense restraint and non-escalatory. However, any threat to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and safety of our citizens
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now open for questions. Please raise the placard or your hand, and once I indicate, I expect you to please give out your name and the media group that you belong to. Also, ladies and gentlemen, kindly bear in mind that confidential aspects may not be answered. I've got a lot of hands there. Let me start from the left. Left foot always in front when we start marching. So here we have to the left, okay.
Hello, so this is Manas Pratimughan from yesterday on stopping the military operations and actions. Cost escalation if there is violation of this understanding by three. So will there be some kind of agreement and the current understanding on stopping military operations? And again, what are the cost that will be incurring on Pakistan? Because we have made it very clear that the cost will be very high. So I would like to have your thoughts on it.
Okay, so I'll answer the latter part of the question first. I also want to add that while the initial ceasefire agreement, but I must remind you that in 2021, in the month of February, and this was then and arrived at a ceasefire understanding that lasted right up until this unfortunate secretary had announced the decisions of the CCS in the immediate wake of that attack. He had announced certain measures. Since then, there have been certain violations of this ceasefire understanding. And of course, after the 7th of May, like I pointed out during my statement, that there have been numerous violations on the line of control especially, and of course along the international boundary by the Pakistan Army and the Pakistan Air Force. This understanding that we spoke about yesterday, no, it was not for 3 days. It was first to stop aggressive and hostile activities immediately, let that order and direction settle down for about 36 hours, and thereafter discuss modalities, like I said, to ensure its longevity. That is tomorrow, on the 12th of May. But unfortunately, we had a violation starting at approximately 1900 hours to the Pakistan Military Operations Directorate, and we will await as to what happens tonight.
All right. Now, the right foot forward. Yeah.
Sir, I am Ajit Dubey from ANI, sir. That was around 35 to 40 kills secured by the Indian Army. In both Army and Air Force attacks, sir. And how good was the performance of the one
No
line, sir?
multiple questions, please.
Sir,
All right.
and since, sir, we have achieved such a spectacular, we have made good achievements in this entire operation, can we say that we have emerged victorious, or thank you very much, sir.
So I'll answer the question about the loss of lives on the other side. Of course, there are various means to ascertain that. There are, of course, on the line of control other ways to find out as to what has been the effect of what you are doing there in ceasefire violations. So therefore, on Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces infrastructure, let me put it that way. So that's why I did not cover casualties of the Pakistan Army, at least in the initial phases of battle, because those were not our targets. Our targets were terror oriented, and of course later, once they launched weapons, and of course there would have been casualties, but those are still being assessed. The effects of the weapons that you mentioned, I will request Air Marshal Bharti to apprise all of you about those.
Good evening, Mr. Sujit. How are you? Ajit. Okay, we are meeting. That we used. Check. Okay. What I was saying, that I never mentioned of any of the weapons, of operational details, which I would not like to go into, but suffice to say that whatever methods and whatever means we have chosen, how many casualties, how many injuries? Well, to start with, our aim was not to inflict casualties, but in case there have been, of the body bags.
And the last part of your question, I wonder if you read out the tweet on ADGPI at midnight. My friend here on the left, justice has been served, Ajit. That is all that I will say.
Ajit, I'll request you to, refrain putting words into his mouth. To the left, 147. Sorry, 47. No, one word. 47. Did I see it here or? Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Sorry, 147. I saw it there. Sorry. Yeah. Since I've already said 147. Start, please.
Hi sir, good evening. This is Shivam Patel from Reuters News Agency. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My question, sir, is how many military targets did Indian Armed Forces strike in Pakistan in response to the attacks from Pakistan? How were these targets selected? And how many troop casualties have been there in total on both sides, if you can give details? Thank you.
I'm sorry, where are you? I haven't spotted his.
He's to the right.
Can you just repeat that for me, please?
Sure, sir. So my name is Shivam Patel. I'm from Reuters News. The Indian Armed Forces strike in Pakistan in response to the attack from Pakistan. How were these targets selected, and how many troop casualties have been there on both sides, if you can?
So you're speaking of the targets that I mentioned in the wake of the attack at Pahalgam, right?
Military targets, sir, after full response.
Yeah, I think crossed the international boundary, neither in the plain sector nor on the line of control. So the intrusions have been in the air. On to try and infiltrate and carry out and perpetrate activities that we are all very well familiar with. Whether these are by terrorists or by the Pakistan, but each of these have been effectively thwarted. So therefore, as far as engagements of military targets, and in detail, and he also mentioned as to how they went about targeting those. I think those images were very clear and very, very graphic in telling us as to what we needed to hit. And you'll remember that right at the outset I said that we even went into what was the construction utilized.
May I?
Please.
Okay, if I could add to what the DGMO has said, I have already detailed the targets. Now, whether it is X numbers or Y numbers that is immaterial. And what damage have we inflicted? You have seen. What are the casualties on the other side? As I said, that is for them to count. As far as we are concerned, from the air defense side, if they had a choice, they would have definitely come in. They are fighters, there are more numbers of UCAVs. It is not that they did not intend to come in. It is only that our robust AD posture prevented them from coming in. So that must be known, and that must be realized by all the audience here.
Yeah, I'll come to the left now, 24.
Good evening, sir. This is Anvesh Rath from Z. Sir, I wanted to know on the first briefing which was done by FS and two representatives from Air Force and Army, you showed a list where there was 21 places in that list, Operation Sindoor still on. And the second question, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And also, I want to congratulate all three of you for a fantastic operation that you guys have done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that one.
He said that the response will be fierce and punitive.
Kills secured